What is up, beautiful people? It's your girl Cam, and I am back with another video. Today I'm coming at you with my May reading wrap-up and my May book reviews. Now this month the theme was Regency, and I read 9 books this month. So if you want to hear about all the books that I read and what I thought about them, just stay right there. Okay, I did read 9 books this month, and we're going to have 2 parts to this video. The first half of the video will be my book reviews and what I thought about the books, the themes, the plot, the characters, and then the second half of my video I will give you an after the pen look at my Archer and Olive reading journal, all of my stats, some more insight into my book reviews, and how everything turned out for this month in my journal. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so coming in at number 9 was The Lady's Guide to Mischief and Mayhem by Amanda Collins. So going along with the Regency theme, this was a Regency murder mystery, like a cozy murder mystery book. And I just did not really enjoy this one. Yeah, I didn't really enjoy it that much. I think I may have given this one 2 or 3 stars, and I rarely give a book 2 or 3 stars. I really have to not enjoy it to give it stars that low, because I know it takes a lot of work for writers to put books together. But what really bothered me about this book was the repetition. It's almost as if the author thinks that the readers are dumb and that we don't remember the story that you've laid out in chapter 1, because in chapter 2, 3, 4, and 5 it seemed as if she was repeating the fact that there was a serial killer that she was trying to find. And I'm like, yeah, you told us that in chapter 1, so can we get along with the story? Like, let's keep moving along with the story. So it was set in the Regency period, and a lot of the book was focused on the fact that women were not supposed to be working in the field of policing and detective work, which I can appreciate, because that's the time period that we were in. But I felt like there was so much emphasis put on that, like over and over and over again. It's like when you write a book, you're asking us to suspend reality and join you in this fantasy world. When you're writing a novel, okay, you're asking us to suspend reality, join you in this fantasy world that you've written about. We get that she probably would not have had this type of position during the Regency period, but we're here for the ride. We're here for the ride, so just take us on the ride, and we are going to believe that she was a detective during the Regency period. Let's go. But I felt like there was so much emphasis placed on her being a woman and not her not being allowed to work in this arena or this field. And then, like I said, just the repetition of a serial killer is on the loose, and I really just did not appreciate the repetition of it, to be honest with you. So I did give it, I don't remember if I gave it 2 or 3 stars. I did give The Lady's Guide to Mischief and Mayhem 3 stars on Goodreads, and I listened to it on Audible, and that was number 9 for this month, The Lady's Guide to Mischief and Mayhem. And coming in at number 8 is Mad and Bad, The Real Heroines of the Regency by B. Koch. It's either Koch or Coach. This came in at number 8 for me this month. This is a non-fiction work, and it is, as the title implies, all about women during the Regency period. And while I learned a great deal about the Regency period from this book, I just did not enjoy the author's style of writing. It felt like I was reading a high school textbook. And I have read other nonfiction works. I'll give you an example. I read a brilliant book about King Leopold, and all of the atrocities that he and his armies committed in the Congo. It was a nonfiction, but it was an excellent read that gave me some deep insight into King Leopold, his armies, the people of the Congo. I mean, it was a book that I could not put down. This book did not give me those types of vibes. It just felt like I was reading a textbook. I didn't feel like I was making any connections with the characters that she was describing. However, as I said, I did learn quite a bit about the Regency period from this book. I learned all about the patronesses and about the gentlemen's clubs where women were not allowed to come in. And then I think it's the Almec Club that finally allowed women to come in. And then the person who was over the Almec Club brought in this elite group of ladies and gave them, I think, each 60 invitations to disperse in their various communities and with their connections. And these became the high society women who ran these social clubs where the elite would come and make matches for their sons and daughters, because ultimately what they wanted to do was keep the wealth among the wealthy. This is why when you watch Regency romances, the parents are always very adamant about you marrying within your class, or marrying within the society, or marrying within nobility, because they want to keep the money up at the top. They want to keep the money up at the top. So this is basically what the whole ton is about, what high society is about, what the patronesses were doing, making sure that only the elite were allowed into these clubs, into these social clubs, and they had specific dances that they had to learn. And if you didn't know the dance steps, if you were not aware of the newest dance steps, then of course you must not be a part of high society. You know, how could you not know the newest dances? I like the quadrilles. You had to know all of these dances that are made up of 4 couples, and the intricate dance moves and the footwork and the arm movement. So it was interesting to learn the information. I just did not enjoy the author's style of writing. There was a great deal about who was sleeping with who was having affairs with who, which, you know, that's interesting to a degree, but I found the information about the high society and how they tried to keep it status quo. I found that part a lot more interesting. But that was Mad and Bad, The Real Heroines of the Regency by B. Koch, or Coach. And I did give this one 3 stars on Goodreads. And I did read the physical copy of it. And coming in at number 7 is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. I did listen to this one on Audible, so I will put a copy of the cover of the book right here for you. Okay, this one was very interesting because this was a fantasy set during the Regency period. So it was like Bridgerton meets fairies and elves and a romance all smashed together in one. So it was a Regency fantasy romance. And it was very, very delightful. So what happens is Nora has half of her soul like snatched out of her body by this evil elf. And her cousin stops the elf from taking the other half of her soul. But the half that is missing is the part that controls emotion and your feelings. This is the part that the elf was able to snatch from her. So from the point that half of her soul was snatched through the end of the story, she's an emotionless, rather detached person. And again, we're still in the Regency period, so we're still dealing with the ton and the patronesses and the like. And of course, her parents want her to be married so that her future will be secure, because during this time period, women were not allowed to work as much as they are now, especially women of nobility. Okay, so most women in high society were expected to marry into a family of wealth where they would have a husband of great means who could take care of them and provide for them, and they would have an heir for this person, etc., etc. So we're still in that time period with a young woman who's had half of her soul snatched, who is very detached and very emotionless, but she's expected to go to balls and go to these events and find a husband. So that is the premise of Half a Soul. And it really is a sweet love story. And she finds love in a very unusual place, in a very unusual way, with a very unusual person. But the story was very, very delightful. I loved the fairies and the elves, even though some of them were evil. I really loved the way the story came together. And how Nora, was it Dora? Dorothea? And I think I said her name was Nora in the beginning, but it's Dora. Okay, so Dora, D-O-R-A. I love how Dora was able to navigate difficult situations because she realized that half of her soul was gone, and that there were certain situations where she should respond in an emotional way, but she was unable to. But she was still able to navigate some very tricky situations. And I almost forgot, there was some very good discussion about class in this fantasy romance. It was very, very sweet to read. I did give this one 4 stars on Goodreads, and I do recommend it. It was a very, very sweet story. If you like fantasy, if you like romance, if you like Regency, I think you will enjoy this one. This was number 7 on my list for this month. Not because I didn't enjoy it, but because I read some really good books. This is number 7, Half a Soul. This was number 7, Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. Okay, now my list gets very interesting because I read the first 2 installations of the Bridgerton series. And I have seen the Bridgerton series on Netflix, and I had certain expectations of which book of the 2 that I was going to read. I had expectations of which book I thought I was going to enjoy most. But boy, was I surprised. And I kind of blame this on Netflix, okay, why I was surprised. So coming in at number 6 and number 5 are 2 Bridgerton stories that I was really looking forward to reading. When I came into this Regency theme, I thought that of the 2 books, I was really going to love The Duke and I most, because I loved season 1 of Bridgerton on Netflix. But that was not the case. So coming in at number 6 is The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. I'm going to put a picture of the cover of the book right here for you. Okay, so I loved Bridgerton season 1, loved the romance between Daphne and the Duke, loved everything about Bridgerton, right? So I was expecting to go into this book with the same feelings. And I did enjoy the book. I did enjoy it. But it was very different from the show. I'm not going to say very different, but it was a little different from the show. how Daphne and the Duke feel toward each other when they get married. That's a little bit of a nuance that I don't think was present. I think they changed the emotions between the two of them when they got married, if I remember correctly. And I don't want to give away too much in case you haven't seen it or you haven't read it. But I'll just leave it at that. The emotions between the two of them were different. How Daphne ends up getting pregnant is very different in the book than in the series. So I did enjoy the read, but not as much as I enjoyed the Netflix series. The read was good. The characters were vibrant. The love story was beautiful. I loved everything about the Regency, the world of the Regency time period, the family members, the whole Bridgerton family. I loved all of that. It just was not my favorite between the two. So I did give this one 4 stars on Goodreads, and that was The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. And coming in at number 6, which was a surprise for me, was The Viscount Who Loved Me, number 5. And I'm going to put a picture of the cover of the book right here for you. But I really went into The Viscount Who Loved Me by Julia Quinn expecting not to enjoy it, because I really did not enjoy season 2 of Bridgerton on Netflix. But I wanted to read it anyway to see if there were any differences. And boy, were there a lot of differences. And I'm struggling with how much I want to say in case you haven't seen it. I don't want to spoil anything for you. Let me see what I can talk about that wouldn't be spoilery. Okay, we'll put it like this. The relationship, the love triangle that develops in the Netflix series is not there in the book. Like what? Like that was what the entire season was built around, was this love triangle that did not exist in the original work. And that is the part of the Netflix series that I did not like. It didn't make sense to me that this love triangle was occurring. It just required one person to say something and the whole triangle would have dismantled, and then 2 people could have been in a relationship working toward a marriage. Like, it was just that simple. And that's exactly how it flowed in the book. The love story between Catherine and Anthony was really beautiful. Their love story was beautiful. They had this, hate turn love trope in their relationship, but it was really, really beautifully done. The accident is a little bit different in the book from the series, and I'm only comparing it to the series because that's what I experienced first. I know that might be a little annoying. I keep referring back to Netflix, but that's what I had to go on, and this is what I was basing my anticipation of whether I was going to like it or not. But I'm so glad that I took the chance to read it, because the book was so much better. I actually liked Anthony and Catherine, and in the Netflix series I did not like either one of them, and I didn't care whether they got together or not. I really didn't. I just wanted the season to be over. I really did not care for either one of those characters. I think the actress who plays Catherine, I think the actress who plays Catherine is stunning. I think she's beautiful. I just didn't like her character. I just didn't like it. So, at any rate, I love the book, and I will say this. If you watched season 2 of Bridgerton and you did not enjoy it, if you're among the many people who did not enjoy it, I highly, highly, so highly recommend that you read the book, or at least listen to the book on Audible. At least listen to it. If you don't want to physically read it, you don't have time or whatever, or it's not on your TBR, listen to it while you're in the car or while you're prepping dinner. Just listen to it. I think that you will enjoy it. I really think you will. So I gave this one 4 stars on Goodreads. This was The Viscount Who Loved Me by Julia Quinn. And I listened to this one on Audible. And coming in at number 4 is our book club selection of the month, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Now this book was a challenge to read. It's heavy content. I will give you some trigger warnings that it talks about depression, it talks about suicide, it talks about death. So you can tell just from that this is a heavy book to get into. However, I thoroughly enjoyed it. This was our book club selection of the month. We had our book club meetup this afternoon, and we had such good, thoughtful, thought-provoking discussion surrounding this book. The ratings that the group gave this book were pretty low because it is heavy content. And because frankly, some of the choices that the main character makes are just, you're like, girl, what are you doing? What are you doing? And why are you doing it? But in the end, there's so much to be gained from following this character story. And one of the things that we talked about in our book club discussion was thinking about what this character was going through and kind of examining your own life experience and how you think about your life and the decisions that you've made and the regrets that you might have about your life. And what do you do with that? What do you do with your hopes and dreams that you had for yourself, the regrets that you have, and what do you do with your future? So this was a challenging book to read, and as I said, there are some trigger warnings because it's heavy material. But the fascinating part about it and what makes it sci-fi / fantasy is that the main character in this book, so this is the Nora. I knew it. So this is the book with Nora. So I had a book with Nora and a book with Dora. So this is where Nora appears. So the main character, Nora, goes into this library at midnight. And she chooses these books that take her to different variations of her life. That really is the premise of the story. And she has just decisions to make and choices to make and really a final ultimate decision to make about her life and what she's going to do with it. So that really is the full premise of the Midnight Library, and what helped me to get through it, because it was heavy content, was to look at this like an episode of the Black Mirror or the Twilight Zone, or what was that called, the Night Gallery. Remember those shows from back in the day? That's what helped me to wrap my brain around this work and what this character was going through. Because I'm reading a lot of contemporary fiction, a lot of historic fiction, a lot of romances, and this was none of the above. Okay, so I had to put my mind in the framework or in the frame of mind of a fantasy fiction similar to a Twilight Zone, or if you're familiar, a Black Mirror, where this person is going through these unbelievable circumstances trying to figure out life. So I really thought it was a good book. It was a challenge to read, but it provoked some really, really heartfelt, good, quality book club conversations. So I'm so glad that we read it. And I did give this one 4 stars on Goodreads. And that is The Midnight Library by Matt Hague. And coming in at number 3 is Rebel by Beverly Jenkins. I'll put a picture of the cover of the book right here. Okay, so first of all, let me say that this book is not a Regency book. And I don't know how I ended up selecting this one for my TBR, because it does not take place anywhere near the Regency period. And neither did the book club pick, but the book club pick doesn't have to fit my theme, my personal theme. I'm going to read whatever the book club decides to read. But when I choose my own books, I'm trying to stay within a particular category. And I don't know how I ended up choosing this book, but I loved it. So let's talk about it. So it's Rebel by Beverly Jenkins, and it is written in, the setting is post-Civil War America. So way after the Regency, but the characters in this book are just delicious. My top three books have got some really, really delightful, delicious characters. So first we have Valinda, who is a very smart, very savvy teacher, and she lives in New York, and then she moves to New Orleans. Again, we're talking about post-Civil War America during the Reconstruction period. And she gets a culture shock because things are very different for her in the South. Now, racism is in existence up north and down south, but it comes in different forms, right, wherever you are in the country. So she's trying to get her school opened. She's working with the Freedmen's Bureau. They are supposed to be this organization that's supposed to help newly freed slaves get on their feet, to get their businesses going. A lot of red tape, keeping people waiting, keeping people standing on long lines, not following through with processes and procedures. Sometimes, in this particular case, harassing people and just not giving them what they are requesting, and frankly, what has been promised to them by this government associated agency, the Freedmen's Bureau. So Valinda is trying to get her school better equipped to teach not just children, but newly freed slaves who were not allowed to read while they were enslaved. So she's trying to teach adults and children, and there are these militia, white supremacist groups who continue to burn down schools and burn down businesses. And so there's a lot of drama going on in this book, and it is categorized as a romance, but it really has a great plot and a great storyline and some really rich characters. So Valinda, the school teacher, encounters some of these supremacist militia groups. So Valinda is being attacked by some supremacists at her school, and she is rescued by Drake Levesque. Now, Drake Levesque is an African-American man who lives in New Orleans, and he comes from the Levesque family. And when I tell you the Levesque sons are the bomb, they are the bomb. They are the definition of provide and protect in the community. I love strong black male characters in books, and Beverly Jenkins has done her thing. All of the Levesque sons are upstanding citizens. They take care of women and children. They provide and protect for the family. They are amazing. So Valinda encounters Drake Levesque and sparks fly. Okay, sparks fly. However, Valinda is betrothed to another man. So there's some tension there, but it's a beautiful love story. There's a lot of information in this book about Creoles, the Freedmen's Bureau, what it was like for newly freed slaves post-Civil War and during the Reconstruction period. Beautiful stories about families and communities working together to get things done. Just a really, really solid. It's called a romance, but I mean, I really think it's slash romance slash historical fiction. It was really, really well done. There are some romancy parts in there. There are some romancy parts in this book, so it is for adults. But over and above that, the storyline and the plot is really very solid. I gave this one 4 stars on Goodreads, and that is Rebel by Beverly Jenkins. Not a part of the Regency, but a good read nonetheless. All right, now y'all, it's time for my top 2 picks for the month. And I am super excited about both of them. So coming in at number 2 is Aphrodite and the Duke by J.J. McAvoy. I don't even have to look at this book to tell you what the name of the author is, because I love her writing. I love J.J. McAvoy's writing so much now. I'm looking for more books to read from her. So, as the title implies, this book is about Aphrodite and a Duke. And when I read the description of this book, it almost turned me off from reading it. But I'm so glad that I took a chance and read it anyway. So the premise of this book is that Aphrodite was, and I put this in air quotes, jilted by the Duke that she was in love with, and that he married someone else. So in the course of the story, we find out exactly what it was that kept them from getting married. But initially, I thought, if he just chose someone else and married them, why you want him? Why you want to be number 2, okay? But that's not quite how it worked out. Something happens to the Duke, and he ends up marrying someone else. But then he comes back around. He ends up courting Aphrodite again. And it's a very, very beautiful love story. But I will say that one thing that annoyed me, which is kind of big, but so much of the rest of the book was so good, I just kind of skimmed over it or gave the author a pass on this. The reason why the Duke did not initially marry Aphrodite when everybody thought that they were going to get married, it just seemed kind of sus to me. And a great deal of the book is hinged on this reason. I just felt like we could have fleshed that out a little bit better. It seemed kind of complicated, which, you know, sometimes life is complicated. I just didn't like the reason that he married someone else. I didn't like the choice the author made in that. I didn't like the choice the author made in that regard. But giving her a pass for that, the rest of the book was absolutely delicious. I love Aphrodite as a character. I loved the Duke as a character, even though he was complex and sometimes he got on my nerves. But I love the two of them together. I love Aphrodite's family, the Dubels. Love them. Such a beautiful, beautiful family. The drama around Aphrodite and the Duke, the family drama, the skeletons in the closet, just a really good, well-written romance. I love a romance with a very good plot. So this one has great family drama, great skeletons in your closet, great, beautiful, well thought out, well fleshed out characters. Just the one thing that I wish the author had kind of switched up a little bit was the reason why they didn't get married to begin with. But I really enjoyed reading this book, and I'm looking forward to reading more from this author. I did give this one 4 stars on Goodreads, and this is Aphrodite and the Duke by J.J. McAvoy. And coming in at number 1, my most highly anticipated book for this month, Queen Charlotte. I was so looking forward to reading this book. First of all, I live in a city that is named after this queen. Oh yeah. Not only is the city named after this queen, the county is also named after this queen. So her name is Sophia Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz. The city and the county where I live is Charlotte, Mecklenburg. So it's like, we are named after this queen, okay? We're named after her. So when I heard about this book coming out, and of course the series on Netflix, I got super excited. But the one thing that I was determined to do was read the book first before I watched the series. And I'm so glad that I did, because this book was amazing. This book was a delightful read. I love Queen Charlotte. I love learning more about Lady Danbury, developing her story. I love the relationship that developed between Queen Charlotte and King George. I loved all of the grandeur of the Regency time period, and just the entire story was so beautiful, such a beautiful, rich love story. I just highly enjoyed it. It was so good. I think my favorite part, and of course because this is a romance, was the friendship and the love that developed between Charlotte and King George. Now, of course, this is fiction based on history, so historical fiction / romance. But I love what Shonda Rhimes and Julia Quinn were able to do with this story. So great, so good to read. So this was another good romance set in the Regency period. Lots of history, lots of drama, lots of love and friendship, and it was very different from the Netflix series. There were a lot of things added to the series that are not included in this book, and I'm perfectly good with that. I think the book was a beautiful standalone work. I highly recommend it, highly enjoyed it. Just written so well, and the characters just jump off the page. Again, Lady Danbury was one of my favorites. Of course, Charlotte was my favorite in this book by far. And the Queen Mother, King George's mother, she's a piece of work in this book. Just a well thought out, beautiful drama, romance, and historical fiction. I did give this one 5 stars on Goodreads. It was my #1 pick of the month, and that is Queen Charlotte by Shonda Rhimes and Julia Quinn. And that's going to do it for me, guys. Those are the books that I read for this month. I read some really good books again. There were so many really good, interesting reads this month. I'm so happy that I was able to read all of these books in the month of May. And now I'm going to give you an overhead shot of my reading journal and let you take a look at my stats and my after the pen reviews in my journal. So if you want to see that, just stay right there. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at my reading journal and give you an overhead shot of my journal and a peek inside my after the pen. So here is my intro page. I have my monthly calendar here, and then my little Dutch door. Tuck this in so it's not distracting. And my little Dutch door here. And on this page I have a little quote. Dear reader, if there is a scandal, I shall uncover it. This is from Lady Whistledown. Society Papers. I have a list here of the books I read. The Duke and I. This is not in the order of what I liked, but just the order in which I read it. So The Duke and I, Midnight Library, Queen Charlotte, Aphrodite and the Duke, The Viscount Who Loved Me, The Lady's Guide to Mischief and Mayhem, Half a Soul, Rebel, and Mad and Bad. And on this side I tracked when I started and finished each book. And I love how this turned out. It's just so pretty and so dainty and feminine and floral. I love it. And then on this next page I have pages read. So for some days I only read about 30 or 40 pages. For quite a few days I read 80 to 100 pages. So this was a good reading month. And I did listen to a lot of books on Audible. So when I'm doing that, I have to kind of estimate how many pages I think I listen to. But I try to be realistic with that when I'm documenting my pages read. And then if I don't read anything at all or don't listen to an audiobook, I just put a little hatch mark there to say that I didn't read. I track my by chapters here. It's just a good way to keep me motivated to keep reading. That's the reason why I do this. I may switch this up next year though. I saw someone documenting the first line of every book that they read that month. And I thought that was so cool because sometimes the first line of a book can be so telling or so impactful to your understanding of the entire book. So I might change this section to first line. Probably not this year, but maybe in subsequent reading journals. But for now, I'm doing by chapter for each book. I love the decorations on the page. And here I have my monthly stats. So the total books read was 9. Total books bought was 4. So I purchase 2 books through Audible every month with a membership. And then I purchased 2 other books from Amazon, I want to say this month. So my book buying was very low. Grateful for that because I've had some months where it was a little over the top, but we're bringing it down. And the other thing is I have started accessing books on Libby and Hoopla and through my public library. And also getting books for free. I say free in air quotes because I'm paying for the Amazon membership and the Kindle Unlimited membership. So those books come with my membership. And there are lots of books on Amazon at Kindle Unlimited that are free for you to read once you buy that membership. So this month I bought 4 books. Total pages read. I think this is the most pages I've read since I've started this reading journey. 3,148. Let me just double check that. But I think that's the most pages I've read in a month. Because this month I did not have any novellas, no graphic novels. Yeah, that's the most. The last month I did 2,129. So this is great. That's great. 3,148. No graphic novels, no picture books. They were all full novels, no novellas. So my page count is really up there. So 3,148 for the pages read. My average star rating was a little low because of my bottom 2 books. The Lady's Guide to Mischief and Mad and Bad. Those did not score very high for me, so it brought my overall rating down. But I mean, you've got some months like that, right? And then my favorite character for this month was Aphrodite from Aphrodite and the Duke. She was just such a layered character. Her character developed so much during that story. It was just really well done. And then my least favorite character was her antagonist, Fitzwilliam. Fitzwilliam was a mess. Okay, I could not tolerate him. He was like the worst character ever. I mean, well written, because I'm sure he was written to be hated, and I hated him. So he was my least favorite character this month. All right, moving on to quotes. I've got all of my quotes here. I'll read just a couple of them to you. I need to finish up my quotes, actually. I'm not done. I need to put a few more quotes in here, but I will share some of the ones I have so far. She was a star. She was a comet. She was everything that sparkled in the night sky, brought down to earth by magic that the church swore did not exist. That's from Queen Charlotte. And then here's another quote from Queen Charlotte. She could not be tamed. It would be a crime to even try. Love that. So I do need to go back and put in a few more quotes, and then I'll be done with this section. I love this little Dutch door though. So cute. I love that. And then for my book reviews, I love how this turned out. I wrote my review for The Duke and I on the front of this little pocket that I created, and then on the inside I have this little pull out little tab and a pull-out, I added some more decoration to this little booklet. And on the inside here, I have reviews for some of my top books, Aphrodite and the Duke, and I just put a little part of the cover there. And then I wrote my thoughts on it with some floral decorations as well. And then another one of my top books on the next page with, again, some florals, a little snapshot of the cover. And then finally, I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed the Viscount Who Loved Me. So I just wanted to give a little nod to them on the back of this little booklet. But I thought this was so cute. It turned out so nice. And it just tucks right in this little pocket. Very easy to take that in and out. And then when I tuck it all the way down, I can read this last quote that I have here: "Reformed rakes make the best husbands." Anthony said that in The Duke and I. And then my last book review is, or I have two in here actually, two that will go in here, is for Queen Charlotte. And I just want to give you a good look at it. I did add quite a bit of decoration to this page. And originally when I set these pages up, I just had Queen Charlotte here and then her name at the bottom. I didn't have all of this decor on here because I really wanted to get a sense of the character before I added too much more. And so I discovered what her favorite flowers were, and I added a picture of the palace here in the back, and then some more greenery on the side, which really made it pop. So I really love this. She was into botany a lot, into growing plants and taking care of plants and the science of growing plants. So growing plants and flowers. So I thought this was a beautiful nod to Queen Charlotte. And on the inside, I have her book review. The book review for Queen Charlotte, the novel, the romance. And one last thing I need to add at the top here is a photo from our book club meetup and my thoughts on The Midnight Library. And I just came back today, so I haven't had a chance to do that yet, but that's what will go in this section. One picture of us, and then maybe a little picture of the book, and then my thoughts on it. But such a great month of reading. And you have already seen my June setup. So that's already in the works and ready to go. I've already started reading, and I am super excited to read more good books this month. So thank you so much for joining me for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to click the notification bell as well, so you'll be notified every time I post new content right here for you. I am looking forward to reading lots of good books in June. I hope that you are too, and I hope that your month is full of love, joy, and most of all, peace. I'll see you next time.